welcome back to the podcast, City Sexies. I'm a City Sexy, you're a City Sexy, they're a City Sexy, let's get into it. So, have you ever faced sexism before?
In a way, I suppose I have, but not like how people commonly think about it. When I was not younger, but like in a different grade, in a younger grade, people often mistake me as a boy. My middle school nurse mistook me as a boy for like a very long time, and I never corrected her because it was embarrassing. She like called it. Only stopped because she called my grandfather one day. She's like, "Your son London is in my office." He's like, "Son?" No, that's a girl. Then she looked at me. She's like, "You're a girl?" Said, yeah. Oh, it was kind of embarrassing, but I didn't really care all that much. I was treated very nicely. I was also thrown around a lot, physically.
Oh, damn.
Yeah, there was this one guy who was like 6'2". Mind you, he's 12. And he would grab me by the arms and spin me around in a circle in the gym and then let go.
Oh, my.
Send me flying across the gym. Said I was tough, so I don't know. Thought it was funny. I also thought it was fun. It gave me a concussion, though.
Oh, that is not good at all.
Yeah, I was thrown across the gym. I don't know what else expectation I would get. I was physically thrown across the gym.
Yeah.
Gravity did its work.
I'd say, like, that's still, I feel like that's, like, in between sexism and reverse sexism, because reverse sexism is kind of what they say when, like, men are treated how women are treated in, like, acts of sexism, but I feel like that's kind of in between, because you're getting both sides of it. You're getting treated as, like, you're getting treated terribly as both, whether they assume you're one or whether they assume you're in the other, which kind of, like, shows how, like, no matter what gender you are, you're gonna get, like, treated not nicely, and especially getting thrown, like, that's pretty brutal.
Yeah. This isn't exactly, like, my story, but I had a friend in middle school. Shout out to Akani, he was a goat. And he was a boy. He identified as a boy, everybody knew that. But because he hung out with a bunch of girls, because he said the boys were weird, which they were, he hung out with a bunch of girls. Our drama teacher casted him as a girl in the play because he assumed Akani was gay, because he would only hang out with the girls. He was like, "Oh, I thought you'd be fine with it because you were gay, you know?" And I was like, "I'm not." I'm like, "Really? I always thought you were." Okay, sir.
Yeah, that's definitely, that's, like, for sure, like, sexism, because that always shows, like, both, like, kind of, like, the double standard, like, if guys have too many girlfriends, they're assumed as being, like, gay, or, like, they're really weird, and the same thing if girls have a guy friend, and it's, like, they're seen as, like, oh, like, you're either in love with the guy friend, or you're gay, and you have a gay friend, and it's, like, I feel like that's sort of, like, those stereotypes kind of, like, divide the groups, and kind of show, like, I feel like those kind of lead into, like, systematic sexism and how, like, there's, like, gender roles put in place and how, like, you're expected to do this if you're that, expected to do that. Like you said earlier, like, the boys, they assumed you were either, they didn't really know, but because you hung out with them, they kind of assumed you were a boy. But at that same aspect, it's like, you know, people assume things, that those are the assumptions come from. That's kind of the basis of sexism, is that it's assumptions built on stereotypes, built on just people, just the division of all people.
Yeah. It's just like, with the whole thing, is like they're using these bases that they put around in the early ages for actual reasons. They needed these things. Like, going back to, like, cave people time or whatever.
Yeah. Like
Flintstones. Yeah, it made sense that the woman would stay inside and do certain things because they needed to reproduce.
Yeah.
That was a requirement for the humans to start to grow with the populations, especially since we were almost wiped out. The entire human population was almost wiped out. So, yeah, at the time it made sense, but now they're just using it. They're abusing these systems we put in place to protect the human population to try and elevate a certain gender and put the other gender under, even though it really shouldn't be like that anymore.
Yeah.
Especially since we have the technology to help people physically if they need it, medically, and all sorts of things. So, and we have like a bunch of children. The world's overpopulated. So at this point, it's less of like needing for there to be certain stereotypes in place for survival, and just having it because they believe that it's easier for them to work that way.
Yeah. Adding on to that, they're kind of basing everything off of like our biology and separating us like that because yeah, our main role in the early ages and stuff was to reproduce, was to grow, was to take care of the family, but as years went on, even though yes, men are physically built and fit to fight and to do all these things and to do heavy like carry heavy things and do hard jobs, that doesn't mean women can't, but at the same time, the biology doesn't say they can or they can't. So it's like, we're basing stuff off of one side, and then we're like, oh, well, because men can do it, women do this instead. It's like the flip-flop, and that's especially what happened during, like, the wars and stuff, and they're like, oh, women stay at home, like, we're not going to add women into wars, we're going to keep the men in it because it makes sense biologically, which, that does make sense, but at the same time, it's like, that's still sexism. Even though it's just the biology. No matter how you're discriminating, it doesn't have to just be like, oh, what you look like, or how you act, or who you're around. It's just your basic biology. And that also comes to effect with trans people and medically and being able to switch your gender if you choose to. That adds even more issues, and that adds sexism to a whole separate level because, like, we have these divides, and then we're adding all these new groups into it, which they have every right to be there, but at the same time, it's causing more and more issues because we're losing the focus of, like, what men do, what women do, what they can't and what they can, and now we have people that are in between, and it's like, there's no space for them because we're so sexist.
Yeah, especially with, like, the trans issue, because, people are, like, trans, a lot of sexists would say, that, like, oh, if you're a trans man, why do you act like that? Like, why are you so feminine? And, or if you're a trans woman, why are you so masculine? Like, there isn't, like, in-betweens. Like, people can accept, like, tomboys or whatever, but if you flip it to, like, a femboy, they're suddenly like, hey, that's weird. That's, like, odd, that's strange. Why would you do that? And that goes the same because being a woman or a man is less of a, not a physical thing, but more of, like, how you view yourself. And if someone who would feel more comfortable, like, presenting as masc while still being, like, a female, like a woman, and then suddenly they're, like, ridiculed for, like, why aren't you the way that we set the world up? And because you're not fitting in the proper box that everybody wants, and then it becomes a problem. And with trans people, especially, if they say they're trans and then they don't act like how a stereotypical woman would act, people are like, but I thought you wanted to be a woman, so why are you acting like that? But that's not what being a woman is. That's different.
Yeah, exactly. Like, adding on to that, it just proves, like, the more years go by, the more we prove our own, like, problems with the fact that we have these gender norms and we shove them into a box, and we're like, if you're this, you have to be that, and if you're this, you have to be that, and you have to be separate. And then when people want to change that, they're like, oh, like, especially trans people, they're like, oh, like, I don't feel like I want to be this gender, like, I feel like I'm actually this gender instead, which, every right to be so, love trans people, but at the same time, it's like, now they're shoved into an opposite box, but then they're shoved into that box, and then when they don't fit that exact, perfect, like, role model man, or, like, what you're supposed to be if you're choosing, or, like, a role model woman, you get discriminated just as badly as women get, sometimes even worse, and that's, like, and that still is sexism, even though it's, like, being transphobic as well. It's also sexism, because everyone has a gender, unless, like, they are agender. But, like, the whole thing is that sexism is by gender, is by the differences, it's by your biology, and especially, like, you know, if you don't feel how you're supposed to feel, or like if you're a tomboy, if you're a femboy, if you don't fit into those really cruel stereotypes, it's like, I mean, it's like terrible. Like, you'll get scrutinized for, you'll get killed. It's basically like you're getting hung for, like the witches were. It's like, if you don't fit into what they want you to be, then you shouldn't be there. Like, you should leave.
Yeah. Also, it's like the people pretending, like, not like those people who are like, oh, I'm a feminist, or oh, I don't believe in sexism, and they're just as like sexist. Like, performative males are a thing, you guys.
Yeah,
And no, it's not like the whole, oh, courtesan matcha, ice matcha type thing. Reading feminine literature. No, it's like genuinely people who like fully believe that they're not sexist, but they constantly are spewing like sexist rhetoric, and they're like, well, no, I can't be sexist because I literally like support women education and women in STEM, and then they say like something like, oh, you have to go back to the kitchen as a joke.
Yeah, it's like, yeah, exactly. Like that whole thing where it's like, oh yeah, we say we're this, but then we go do that instead. And that whole idea of like, it's like, not only just like contradictory, but it makes what they're doing even worse. And especially people who are like, oh, I'm like anti-feminist, or I'm like, I do this and I do that. You're still making fun of what makes women women, just because they're like, oh yeah, like I support feminism, like women in STEM. Women had to fight to be in STEM. There was a battle, like, there was a whole issue with women trying to fight into STEM. Now it's this cool thing. We're like, oh yeah, we all want to be women in STEM, but first it was men in STEM. It wasn't even really called that to like be like, oh, like this is this great thing. No, because it was always men, and then finally women kind of broke that mold and broke through. But still, if you're a woman in STEM, you still get like scrutinized for it. You still get treated terribly because you're a woman. So it's that basis of like, yeah, you're a feminist, or if you're not. If you're a feminist or if you're not, you have to either pick a side or understand that the world is sexist and they're going to be cruel no matter if you're a woman or not. But women not being feminist kind of like, I guess like, it's the whole problem in the same thing where it's like, you're not, yeah, you're not supporting your own self. You're like, you're not supporting your own self. You're not like, you're like adding more fuel to the fire. You're proving, oh yeah, it's fine. Like, it's fine to discriminate. It's fine to do this. It's fine to do that. No, it's not. You're making it worse.
I never really liked the term, like, woman in STEM or something like that. Like, oh, they're a woman firefighter. Like, I'm a firefighter. Why do you have to add the part where it's like you have to distinguish? Like, back before women could be, like, workers or whatever, they wouldn't say that's a male firefighter or that's a male whatever. They would just say, hey, he's a firefighter, or hey, he's a scientist. But now, even in like written articles, they'll be like with facts like this female astronaut just did this, this, and this, and you could easily just be like, hey, this astronaut did this, because I get they're trying to like emphasize the importance. Oh, they were a girl, they could do it, but it kind of feels like they're undermining it on a certain basis, because they have to establish that they were a woman. They did this. Yeah, sure, they were a woman, but just like everyone else, they did the same, probably did the same amount of education as a male. And you don't hear the distinguishing with like male scientists or anything. Be like, this scientist did this, but with a woman, it'd be like this female emphasis on female scientists did that. Even though it's just like you could most definitely say, hey, the scientist did this, and it would have the same effect, if not better, because now you're not distinguishing that female scientists are much different than men, because more often than not, they're probably not that different. Some of them probably learned from the same professor, some of them probably went to the same class, but because you're putting that emphasis on the specific gender, now you're showing like, hey, this person stands out simply because of their gender. This person is different just because of how they identify. Like, when they be like, oh, this trans actor did this. It would be different if they wanted it. Like, if they were advocating for it, it made sense. But if they're just, like, doing their job and they're just, like, doing what they have to do to, like, make a living, then there's, like, no, I feel like there's no actual point in pointing out that they might be trans or something. And if, like, I get it, like, you want representation, but if it gets to a point where their whole identity becomes around being transgender or being a woman or something like that, it kind of, like, feels like it defeats the purpose.
Yeah, no, exactly. Yeah, it totally does defeat the purpose because adding that first shows like, oh yeah, they're not as good as everyone else who's not that because they're this different. They're a woman, they're trans, they're non-binary, they're whatever they want to be, and because of that, just because they're not what was once assumed, like especially with the firefighters, especially with actors and stuff, they always have to list out first and foremost like, oh, this is what this person is before we get to who they are and like what they've done.
Like gender first, like
yeah,
it's like woman first,
exactly,
job after.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's that whole like annoying thing that's like, no, you have to list this first to prove like, oh, it's a woman. Oh my, people might not like this instead, and then like the whole debate with the NBA and the WNBA and that whole aspect of it being like women aren't good enough to be in the NBA and the fact that women don't get paid enough for it and the fact that the NBA actually pays for the WNBA because men don't want to watch women play. They want to watch men play because men are stronger, men do all this and that. So in past years,
fighting over sweaty balls. They enjoy that. They enjoy seeing men
yes,
climb
they
on
do.
top of each other.
They do. But the whole point of the fact that women doing that same act isn't worth as much of their time as a man doing it. It's not seen as the same. It's not seen as equal, even though the only difference is the gender. They can still play basketball. They can still lift up a car. They can still do all these things. And sometimes they can do it better because of their biology. There was a story that I read once online that showed that this woman, like her kid was trapped in her car, and she was able to lift up half the car so her kid could get out, but a man in that same situation, he couldn't. Even though physically he was much stronger than her. But the fact that women have kind of that like maternal instinct inside of them that they have more, I guess they have more ability to take care of their kids, biology, but that the same fact is that they shouldn't be seen to do that. That's why weightlifters and all these things is always men, because women themselves, they don't have that much power, but in a life or death situation, they can get that power from someone else or somewhere else because they're women rather than men that's like, oh my god, they only have the power that they have. If they're like, they have no muscles, can't do it, but a woman, they could do that same thing.
Yeah, it's like, there's like these things like, like, you know how when a woman's taking care of their kid, it's just like, oh, you're taking care of your baby, but a man's taking care of it. Now it's like, oh, you're babysitting. And I feel like, because we've been talking about, like, women's sexism a lot, but there's a lot of, especially with, like, single fathers.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, like, it's like they can't do anything. It's
exactly.
like everything becomes sort of like, oh, so you're babysitting for the mom. Like, he can't take care of the kid himself. Like, fathers can definitely take care of their kids, but because of the systems we set up, now it's just instantly like, oh, so you, like, is mom on vacation? Is mom having like a little break? Are you giving her a break? No, I'm taking care of my kid. Why is it considered babysitting when a dad does it, but childcare when a mom does it? And I get like the basis of it, like people assume that the mother's the main caretaker, but it could very easily be like the father as well. Not to bring in kids shows, but if you've ever seen Bluey, you would know that the dad is Bluey and Bingo's main caretaker while the mom goes to work. Like every day, like all the time, he's playing with the kids, hanging out, and that's considered normal. It's their norm. But say if the same thing was happening outside of a cartoon, in real life, if the dad was the main one taking care of the kids, people would be like, oh, so you're babysitting for the mom while she's out doing something, like getting groceries. No, he was the main caretaker. He will always be Bluey and Bingo's main caretakers because that's how he wants to live his life. He likes hanging out with his daughters. He enjoys it. He likes being the main caretaker. He thinks it's cool. He thinks it's fun. He enjoys doing it. He enjoys caring for his children. And that's not to say the mom doesn't also enjoy caring for her children. She just cares for them in a different way. She's more the responsible parent. She tells them, hey, it's time to go to bed. Hey, we need to do this. He's like, hey, we need to go to bed, but also we can do this first. Let's have, like, he takes care of them very often, but he also plays with them. He has fun hanging out with his daughters, and he takes care of them all the time. And the mom comes, she also takes care of them and plays with them, but she is the main breadwinner of the family. She goes to work, she comes back home, and he's with the girls when they're not in daycare, because I think they're like 5.
Yeah, and I think adding on to that same point, it proves, like, women are expected to do all these things, and then men are to do this, but when you flip the roles, it's seen as wrong. It's seen as, like, oh, you're babysitting, oh, you're doing this, oh, you're just, like, a caretaker for now. Like, especially when, like, male nannies became a thing, it was always, like, a female nanny, and it's like, oh, it's not my nanny anymore, it's a male nanny. You know, we have to make that, like, difference, which is also why it proves even more, like, how terrible we're getting at, like, I guess, like, treating people as, like, they just want to be treated, like, just being like, oh, I want to take care of my kids even though I'm a guy and, like, the mother's working, I can still do that, I'm still their parent, you know, just because I'm a man doesn't mean I'm not their parent anymore, doesn't mean, like, oh, I have to go to work, especially with, like, the pay time off thing, like, sometimes companies, they give it to the women, or they give it to the men, but sometimes they don't do either, they don't give you any pay time off when you just had a kid, this whole thing is like, oh yeah, women have to quit their jobs after giving birth. Like, they can't do this and that. But a man, once the woman gives birth, he could quit his job. He could clearly take care of the kid. He helped give birth to the kid. You know, he's the reason why the kid is there. So the man can easily take care of the kid just because, you know, the biology, it's like, oh, well, you know, women need this and that. A baby cannot formula. A man could feed a baby. It's just food. It's just water. It's just taking care of it, putting it to sleep, and treating it as a baby. It's a child. Like, they were once a child. Everything that was once something else can take care of that same thing years later. It just makes sense. It's how all animals react. It's just, we have to care for everything else. You know, even though humans, we like to separate ourselves, we like to create those differences, when you look at the gender roles of animals around the world, they're very flipped from us, and they actually sometimes don't even have gender roles. They just take care of the family no matter what.
Yeah, like, people are, like, in the early ages of, like, the baby being born, obviously, people are like, hey, so the mother has to take care of it, maternity leave. But the thing is, what if just, like, theoretically, the mother died during childbirth, which is, like, that happens often, especially before the medical, like, boom. Women would often die during childbirth, leaving the father to take care of it. But fathers often don't get the same maternity leave because they're not the person who gave birth, but they're still the person who has to take care of the kid. And there's this whole thing, especially with, like, people being like, oh, it's better to breastfeed their kid, if the mother's alive, how can she breastfeed their child if she's at work? Well, you can freeze breast milk. That's an active thing. You can pump it and give it to the kid. It's not hard. It's not like, especially with today's technology, it's not difficult for the mother to not breastfeed or to breastfeed while not being there. The father could easily do it. Well, not do it, but
still,
have the supplies to.
That, but also a lot of women actually can't do, like, the breast milk and all that, so they do formula, but also, like, formula is easier to make and it's easier to do that, but also at the same time, some babies, like, sometimes they need that and that's, like, their only, like, source of food, but sometimes they can just be fine, like, just with, like, formula or just with, like, milk or, like, some other substitutes instead, and children are still fine with that. Because a lot of times you can't get it, or, like, you can't afford it, or you can't figure out a way to, like, give it to your kid, and especially as you're, like, working and everything, it's like, women want to go back to work after a woman is pregnant for 9 months minimum at least, normally, like, that's a lot of your time that you spend being pregnant and taking care of something in your body, and then once it comes out of you, you're like, oh, I have to just give up my life. I already did for 9 months. I want to go back to my life. I want to go back to, you know, not doing this. So it's like, if the father wants to be a stay-at-home dad or wants to be, like, whatever, or becomes a single father, that should just be accepted as a normal, as, like, it can happen, it will happen sometimes, because it will, and it can, and that's the whole thing of, like, it adds on to the basis of sexism, but also the fact that we created this term, reverse sexism, to highlight men being, like, men having the discrimination towards them, but at the same time, it's sexism in general as a whole, and we should really stop and think about how we're treating people and how we're creating these stereotypes, because stereotypes are the basis of our society being so, like, corrupt and cruel. Like, we never had a man president, at least in the U.S. Or a woman president, I mean. We only had men presidents in the U.S., but we have women in power all across the globe. We're the only country that doesn't.
Yeah, like Queen Elizabeth.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, holy goat, lived for so long. Jesus, she was so old. No disrespect.
Okay.
All respect to the late queen.
Yeah.
But I thought she would never die. Not even like I was hoping like on her downfall. I genuinely thought she just lived for so long.
She was the oldest queen.
Yeah, she was like so old.
Yeah, her
That sounds
grandmother,
so disrespectful every time I say it. She's so old, you guys. She was so old. She was gonna kick the butt.
Oh,
No,
my.
when I was little, I genuinely thought like my brothers genuinely convinced me like she was immortal. Like, yeah, that checks out. I was like, how old is she? She was like over 100. Like, I was like, really? Like, yeah. They were lying to me, but
yeah, they were
lying to me.
Yeah, no,
but
I think
it was like, geez.
I think she might have been like 80 something, 90.
She was 90.
Yeah, she's either
90 when she
80,
died.
90 something, because the thing was that her grandmother, actually her great grandmother, was Queen Victoria, and she was originally the first queen to have ruled for that long, and then she became the second queen to actually be able to rule for that amount of time, and it proved like, oh wow, a woman can be in power this long, even though she had a husband, even though there was a king of England, she was still people thought of as the ruler of England. They didn't think of the man, they thought of the woman, which it like proves that whole thing of like, you know, women can do this, women can be in power even though it doesn't always happen. Saying that, yeah, he didn't follow all of his king duties, now he's following them more, but she was the main leader in charge from when she became appointed queen.
Like the first Queen Elizabeth.
Yeah.
Like the first queen, I don't even think she had a king. I don't think so.
No, she didn't. When she was appointed, she wasn't. I think she was 19 when she
was
got
19,
appointed, and she had no, and she was like, I'm just gonna rule anyway.
Yeah, she had no king. She just ruled by herself.
Yeah.
She was, oh my gosh, she was iconic.
Yeah, and then she later got married.
All the things she did was just so...
Yeah, because she broke the mold for women, and she actually did stuff, and then her and Princess Diana also proved... Like, Princess Diana broke the mold. Yeah, she broke the mold with AIDS and with touching, like, children from across the globe and, like, being like, oh, wow, like, a royal person is doing this. Like, a royal woman came all the way to a separate country to show support for a disease, for something that's causing people so much harm, something people can't control. And she's proving, like, yeah, not only am I a royalty, I'm a woman in power that can do this.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm sorry.
But, you know, back to, like, the whole, like, main idea with the whole thing is that, like, sexism is definitely a problem today. And, like, we talked about so many different aspects of it, but the same thing is, like, all of that was sexism, even though, like, you know, we didn't realize it at first, like, especially with what you were saying, like, you were experiencing sexism, even though it wasn't the typical way, it was still sexism at the end of the day. Which kind of shows that, like, no matter what generation, no matter what age, you're still going to face sexism, and it's kind of like the norm, I guess, we kind of decided, you know, it's like regular, it's what we assume will happen. I mean, especially with, like, you know, how you dress and how you act, it's like they assumed you were a guy, or they assumed you were neither, because they're like, we don't know, because of stereotypes. But on the opposite of that, people always assume I was, like, I'm a girl, but then when I had my hair cut short, they're like, oh, like, we don't know what you are, but because you're following those stereotypes that are proving, like, oh, what are you? Like, are you a tomboy? Are you this? Are you a guy? Are you, like, someone who's trans? And it's like, no, like, I can just exist as, like, what I am. Why do we need to put ourselves into these tiny boxes to make a point?
Right. It's like, with, like, the boxes, it's kind of odd and strange, especially since most people they would associate with the boxes don't actually fit the boxes.
Yeah.
Like, you know the whole alpha male stereotype, like the Sigma male, and they were like showing clips of American Psycho.
Yeah,
that was like so horrid, because if you actually watched like the movie or read the books, you would know that he was the furthest thing from what they were trying to make him out to be. It was so funny to me when I was watching it, because I was like, hey, so no, you're like so wrong about everything. He wasn't trying to pursue women because he liked them and because people thought he was cool. They were only with him because he was rich and he was white. And the whole premise was the whole premise of the book wasn't about like he's so powerful, he's so cool. It was the fact that he had no identity. He was literally every 2 seconds he was being mistaken for another person because he was literally just another face in the crowd. And there was nothing to distinguish him, nothing important to distinguish him from everybody else except for his wealth. But all he hung out was with other wealthy people, so he literally would blend in constantly. And people would be like, he's so cool, he's such an alpha sigma male. Oh my god, I want to be just like him. But he wasn't a good person, nor was he like an important person. At the end of the day, he was someone that nobody remembered, that nobody really truly ever cared about. He was just another face in the crowd, almost.
Exactly, and I feel like sometimes we kind of need to go back to that whole idea of, like, you know, we're all just people, you know, in the world, and it's like, we should stop, like, you know, breaking us down and being like, oh, you look like this, you should this, you're a woman, you're a man, you're trans, you're this, you're that, like, you're choosing what you are, people are choosing it for you, and I feel like sometimes we need to stop making those choices. We need to be like, I'm just a person from this country. We can break down on ethnicity, even though we still shouldn't. Like, if you want to break down on something, break on down something like that's that. Something that's not, like, depreciating. Something that doesn't make you feel bad about something you can't control. You can't control the gender where you're born, and now, at least you can make it, like, adjusted to fit who you want to be. At the same point, you can't ever change what you originally were. You can't go back to that either. And it's like, we should just leave it as it is. We shouldn't be discriminating people because they look like this, because they're that, because they act this way. We should just be like, they're this, they're that, we accept it, and we move on.
Right, it shouldn't be like a whole thing where like every 2 seconds it's like, oh, you're this? Okay, then I have to do this, I have to do that. It's like, okay, but you're this, so I'm gonna just keep treating you like how I treated you before, because at the end of the day, it's less about how you express yourself and more of like who you are as a person. Because if someone's like, oh, I'm trans, whatever, and they're like, oh, okay, but they're like rude, disrespectful, it's not like I'm avoiding them because they're trans or because they're a man or a woman. I'm avoiding them because, hey, so you shouldn't be saying things like that. And it's like, I don't care if you're like a man or a woman, or if you're like transgender or non-binary or anything. It's not about like what you present yourself as, and more of like how you express yourself to, not like outwardly to the world, but like with your words and with like what you're using your voice for. You can't say you're one thing and then immediately start disregarding everything else around you. You have to, if you want to be something and if you want to be respected, you have to be a kind of person someone wants to respect, not the sort of type of person that no one really enjoys being around. You have to be enjoyable to be around. You can't just be like rude, disrespectful, and like a pain to talk to, because no one wants to interact with a person like that, no matter their gender.
Exactly, yeah. Well, thank you everyone for joining us on the podcast.
Thank you very much.